Well, Liz brought the project together, for sure. I guess, it was instinct that, drew me to the project, the material, just because when I read the novel, I just finished in tears. When I read the script, I finished in tears. I was like, well, there's probably something there. I connect to material, and I was somehow convinced that I was the right person to translate that into, the moving image. And then, when Liz asked me if I was interested in it, it was like, this was made for me. Hire me. and somehow I convinced her. And here we are, and I'm very happy about that.
Thank you. Liz, do you want to say? Elizabeth? No? Okay. We have some time for some questions from the audience, so please put up your hand. I'll repeat the question. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a question for Josh. How does interpreting a fictional character felt with the whole movie?
How does interpreting a fictional character?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about what it was like to interpret this fictional character throughout the movie? Some of your process to create this character.
I suppose pretty much the same as anything else really. In terms of the fictional, it's all. I guess that I've only really ever played one person who is like a real person. And even then, that's sort of it's totally fictional anyway. So with this, it was pretty much the same approach, actually. I think with this, we looked at I create scrapbooks of images and words that have helped me, and we had so much material because the novel is so rich with language. So I took some stuff from there, and then there was one image which Eva and I looked at a lot, which was a photograph of John Grant. Is that right? It is John Grant, isn't it? From the Bloomsbury set, which is a collective of artists in the sort of early 20th century. And there was this very kind of sort of ghostly figure of Duncan Grant, that's it. John Grant was someone else, another artist who's brilliant. Duncan Grant, and Duncan Grant sort of looking down, and it's a black and white image, and it's ghostly, it's very sad. And I always kind of went back to that because I guess in kind of understanding Paul's guilt, like sort of survivor guilt, kind of the responsibility of holding up not just the responsibilities of his family and his neighbourhood, but also the responsibilities of, in some ways, an entire generation of young men. This image seemed to kind of capture it, so that was something I kept going back to. I don't know if that answers your question.
Great answer.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead here as well.
Yeah, okay. For me, I really loved Odessa Young. She was amazing as Jane. I just want to ask, what was the process like finding your Jane?
Oh yes, how did you find your Jane? How did you find Odessa Young to play her?
It was not a straight road, but it definitely led us to Odessa. And when I got to see her performance in Shirley next to Elizabeth Moss, I was, before watching the film, I was like, ooh, that's going to be a dangerous one because Elizabeth Moss is such a force of nature. And Odessa, I was just like right up there with her, and I was like, that's Jane. She's got the charisma, the strength, the vulnerability. And, we met over Zoom, and it just seemed so natural, and we just started talking about grammar. I was like, yes, makes sense. So I don't know, it's just, I feel extremely lucky in terms of cast, because all of them just make sense. It makes sense to them, to us, all of us. There was nothing that was unnatural about the whole process, and believe me, it's not like that always.
We have a question, yeah, towards the back. Go ahead. So the questions about the music in the film and how the score was created, and it was very much a character in the film?
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking to the side to see if the composer is there, because she's... Just come here. Just come here. Come here. Go, baby.
Well, I think we struggled a little bit at the beginning, actually, trying to find, I think, what the tone was. And, you know, the film skirts 3 different times, and we wanted to do justice to the script and also try to keep it modern and, I don't know, kind of timeless. So it's anachronistic and timeless at the same time. That was the mandate, which is really easy.
I mean, there are several things that I'd like to add to that. First of all, Morgan and I, we've known each other for 20 years, and that plays a big part in what you hear, because there is trust that we have in each other that's quite uncommon, and also the possibility to fail and to get lost and to get back on track, and that's very, very rare in the process. And you know, she's right, the mandate was quite impossible, and we just kept on pushing, and Lise also has an amazing ear, and she, you know, sometimes we would get lost in the way, and she'd be like, just, you know, keep that in mind, that, and I was like, okay, and Morgan was like, okay, all right, you're right, you're right. So it's very much a synergy of people just, you know, trusting the process of that specific movie, and the movie giving us a lot. And thank you for the question, because I'm very proud. And you know, Morgan traveled here, and we're just very proud that she's brought on stage. So thank you, Tanya.
Okay, we have a question right here. Go ahead. Yes. Right, so the questions, it's a magnificent film, and the questions around the significance of the horse.
Pretty. I'm half joking. I don't know, you know, it's got a significance in the novel to start with. It just so happens it's very cinematic, you know, it runs, it shines, it's strong, it's got great hair. There's just like many angles to it, and I don't think I try to not overanalyze. I have a very classical academic background, but when I'm making something, I like to go with where it brings me and just follow that. And the horse was one of those things, you know, we had a horse and we tried to film it, and we had 2 images that we could use. And there you go.
I think that also one of the things that's very interesting to me about this story is the unintended consequence of loss. And as Josh had said, a whole generation was wiped out in the First World War. And what he tells the story of is the family, which was typical of an upper middle class family in England, bought a racehorse, and that was the family racehorse, and it was a sort of trophy racehorse, and sometimes they went to watch it run, and they each owned a piece of it. And really, in some ways for me, it symbolizes what happened when that generation was wiped out, is the structures of the caste system in England started to crumble, and the unintended consequence for Jane was that she moved from servitude into a space of education and learning and creativity and independence, which never would have been granted to her previously. And so when you come to the end, she says, actually that full plate was mine, and a piece of that ownership and possession was hers. And it's the sort of this terrible tragedy, which we see throughout history as moments of real tragedy. I think especially for women, there's a kind of freeing because structures are broken down. I mean, not that you want the tragedy of loss like that, but it's a kind of, that's life, is out of horror and tragedy can come, new life and new forms and new shapes, and somehow, without being too metaphoric, I think that Fool's Fandango signifies some of that, or symbolizes, not signifies, some of that. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you. We have a question over there. Go ahead.